Have you ever noticed that your best ideas don't arrive when you're staring at a blank page or sitting at your desk, but when you're walking down an unfamiliar street, traveling in a new city, or even just taking a different route home from work? One moment you're absorbed in the novelty of your surroundings, and suddenly your mind offers up a fresh insight that had eluded you for days. This isn't random. It's the result of a powerful phenomenon called context-dependent thinking, the idea that your environment quietly shapes the way you think, feel, and create. And once you understand how this works, you can use your surroundings as an invisible lever to unlock creativity and psychological renewal. Let's start with something simple. Imagine sitting in your usual cafe, the one you visit every morning. You know the smell of the coffee beans, the sound of the milk frother, the spot on the wall where the sunlight always falls. You feel comfortable, but maybe also a little predictable. Now imagine walking into a cafe in a completely different neighborhood, with strange artwork on the walls, conversations in the background in a language you don't understand, and a menu you've never seen before. Your brain immediately lights up. New sights, sounds, and even smells act like small jolts of electricity, shaking your thoughts loose from the ruts they usually travel. Suddenly, connections you couldn't make before begin to form. Psychologists have long studied this phenomenon. Our brains are not isolated processors running the same code everywhere. They are deeply context-sensitive. The external cues around you, whether it's the color of a room, the layout of furniture, or the view outside a window, directly influence how your brain processes information. This is why a memory might only resurface when you return to the place where it happened, or why revisiting your childhood home can flood you with emotions you didn't know were still alive. Your environment doesn't just hold your memories, it frames your thinking. Consider the concept of encoding specificity in memory research. When you learn something in a particular environment, your brain encodes not just the information, but also the sights, sounds, and even smells present at that time. Later, returning to that environment can trigger recall because the context is the same. But the effect isn't limited to memory. It also applies to creativity, problem-solving, and even mood. If your brain learns to associate your work desk with stress and procrastination, simply sitting there might cue those same feelings again, no matter your intention. On the other hand, stepping into a different environment can interrupt that pattern and open the door to a new mental state. Think of your brain like a plant. It grows in the direction of light, water, and soil nutrients. Similarly, your thoughts grow in the direction of the cues provided by your surroundings. If you keep planting yourself in the same soil day after day, you shouldn't be surprised when the same kind of ideas keep sprouting. To change the harvest, you sometimes need to change the field. This is why travel feels transformative. It's not just about seeing landmarks or eating exotic food. It's about immersing your mind in a completely new set of cues. Your usual thought patterns are disrupted and the brain has to reorganize itself in response. That reorganization is where creativity and self-discovery happen. But the good news is, you don't need an expensive plane ticket to experience this effect. Even small shifts in your environment can reset your thinking. For example, studies show that people generate more creative ideas when working in spaces with natural light and plants compared to windowless rooms. Walking meetings, where you discuss ideas while strolling outdoors, tend to spark more dynamic conversations than sitting in a conference room. Something as simple as moving to a different chair in your house or rearranging objects on your desk can change the mental associations your brain makes and help you see a problem in a new way. There's also a psychological explanation for why familiar spaces can dull creativity. Familiarity breeds efficiency. When you walk the same street to work every day, your brain gradually reduces the amount of attention it pays. It runs the route on autopilot. This saves energy but also limits awareness. Novel environments, by contrast, demand attention. They force your senses to wake up. And when your senses wake up, so does your thinking. This is why mindfulness practices often emphasize noticing your surroundings in detail. The cracks in the pavement, the sound of birds, the way light filters through trees. By paying attention to your environment, even a familiar one can become novel again, reigniting that spark of fresh thinking. Philosophers, too, have long recognized the link between place and thought. Nietzsche wrote that all truly great ideas are conceived while walking. The Stoics believed that the environment shapes character and recommended deliberate exposure to new situations as a way of building resilience. Even modern writers and artists often credit travel or relocation for their breakthroughs. Ernest Hemingway wrote about how different cities gave him different voices. For him, Paris was one kind of inspiration, Havana another. The lesson here is simple. Thought is not just in your head, It is rooted in the soil of place. Let's make this practical. How can you use your environment to shift your thinking in daily life? The first tool is micro-travel. Instead of waiting for a big trip, design small disruptions in your routine. Take a different street to the grocery store. Sit in a different spot at the cafe. Work from the library instead of home. These changes sound trivial, but they signal novelty to your brain, prompting it to break out of habitual loops. Many people report that their best insights come while commuting, showering, or walking precisely because those activities place them in contexts where the mind drifts freely. The second tool is environmental design. Ask yourself, what does your current space cue you to do? If your bedroom has become a secondary office, does it still cue relaxation, or does it now trigger stress? If your desk is cluttered with bills and unfinished tasks, does it invite focus or avoidance? By consciously designing your spaces, you can align them with the mental states you want. For creativity, try adding elements of novelty, rotate artwork, introduce objects that spark curiosity, or simply change the lighting. For calmness, reduce clutter and use consistent cues like a particular scent or playlist that signals safety. Your environment can become your ally instead of your saboteur. The third tool is context anchoring. This means deliberately pairing environments with activities so that your brain learns strong associations. For example, if you always journal in one particular chair with a cup of tea, over time your brain will slip into reflective mode as soon as you sit there. If you study in the same spot, the context itself becomes a trigger for focus. This works in reverse too. If you check emails in bed, your brain may start to associate the bed with work stress instead of rest. By choosing context wisely, you can build a toolkit of places that summon the mental states you need. You can even apply this to emotional regulation. Ever noticed how stepping outside during an argument can instantly lower the intensity? That's because the environment shifts. The walls and objects that were part of the emotional storm are left behind, and the new space acts as a psychological reset. Changing your physical context gives your mind permission to change its emotional context too. Another fascinating aspect of context-dependent thinking is how it affects identity. Who you are is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic interplay between your traits and your surroundings. You might feel confident and witty in one group of friends, yet shy and reserved in another. The environment, including the people in it, acts like a mirror reflecting back different versions of yourself. This isn't hypocrisy, it's adaptability. Recognizing this can be empowering because it shows you that your sense of self isn't trapped. By changing your environments, you can experiment with new facets of your identity. For instance, if you've always felt stuck in a role at work where others see you as quiet, try joining a different team or engaging in a hobby group where no one knows you. The fresh environment allows a new narrative of yourself to emerge. This is why moving to a new city can feel like an opportunity to reinvent yourself. It's not just imagination, it's context giving you the psychological space to shift. Of course, context-dependent thinking has its downsides too. If your environment is full of negative cues, it can reinforce unhelpful patterns. A messy room can amplify stress, a toxic workplace can narrow creativity, and even subtle details like harsh lighting can drain your energy without you realizing why. Becoming aware of this influence helps you see that not all struggles are internal. Sometimes what feels like a lack of willpower is actually a mismatch between your goals and your environment. The solution isn't always to push harder, but to reshape the context. Think about students who perform better in certain classrooms, or people who feel more energized in one city compared to another. Context acts like an invisible hand steering thoughts and behaviors. The key is to notice when your environment is steering you away from what you want, and then to adjust it. This might mean creating a dedicated space for deep work, stepping outside for a reset when emotions run high, or seeking out new environments that challenge and expand you. By now, you can see the pattern. Your surroundings are not passive backdrops but active participants in your mental life. They whisper suggestions to your brain about how to feel, think, and act. Sometimes those whispers keep you stuck in loops of habit, but they can also invite you into new possibilities. The trick is to listen carefully and to choose environments that align with the version of yourself you want to grow into. And when novelty is needed, don't wait for a plane ticket. Sometimes the doorway to fresh ideas is just a different street, a different room, or even a different chair away. One of the most powerful exercises you can try is what I call environmental reflection. The next time you feel stuck, don't ask yourself only, "What am I thinking wrong?" Instead ask, "Where am I thinking this?" Pay attention to how your environment might be shaping your mood or your thought patterns. Are you trying to brainstorm new ideas in the same room where you usually pay bills? Are you attempting deep focus in a space that's cluttered or full of distractions? The moment you change your surroundings, even slightly, you often find your thoughts loosening and becoming more flexible. This is why people report getting insights while walking outside, standing in the shower, or even sitting on a park bench. The mind and body crave novelty to spark new associations. Another strategy is what researchers call contextual layering. This means that you deliberately assign different spaces to different kinds of thinking, and then switch between them when you need to shift perspective. For example, you might use one corner of your home for analytical tasks like spreadsheets or planning, another corner for reflective tasks like journaling, and a completely different setting like a cafe or a walk for creative brainstorming. Over time, your brain begins to associate each place with a mode of thought, and simply entering that space primes you to think in that way. It's like having mental shortcuts built into your environment, saving you from the exhaustion of forcing focus or creativity from scratch. It's also worth exploring how environments influence your emotions. We often assume our moods are entirely internal, but in reality, they are co-created with the spaces we inhabit. A dimly lit, crowded room will subtly increase your stress levels, while a sunlit open space will calm you. This isn't just preference, it's biology. Your nervous system constantly reads cues from the environment to decide whether you're safe, threatened, energized, or relaxed. If you understand this, you can begin to regulate your emotions not only through internal techniques like meditation, but also through external choices. Stepping outside, rearranging a room, or even adjusting lighting and sound. In this way, your environment becomes part of your emotional toolkit. One particularly practical habit is to create what I like to call thinking sanctuaries. These don't need to be elaborate. A chair by a window, a favorite park bench, or even a certain cafe table can become a designated place where you allow yourself to think more freely. Over time, the brain forms an association between that place and a state of openness. Returning to it, you may find your mind naturally shifting into deeper reflection or more creative connections without conscious effort. It's like installing shortcuts into your mental operating system. But let's also be clear about balance. Constant novelty can be overwhelming. If every day you are in a different environment, your brain may not have time to settle, and creativity can turn into scattered energy. What you want is a rhythm between stability and disruption. Stability gives you a foundation, those familiar places where your mind feels safe enough to rest. Disruption injects energy, those new places where your mind wakes up and explores. The art is in learning when you need each one. If you feel uninspired, lean into novelty. If you feel overwhelmed, return to the familiar. Used together, they create a kind of breathing pattern for the mind. Philosophers like Gaston Bachelard, in his reflections on the poetics of space, suggested that places shape not only thoughts, but also imagination itself. A childhood attic, a garden, a quiet library. These aren't just locations. They are containers of moods, holding certain ways of seeing the world. By revisiting or recreating such places, you can invite back the states of mind they once nurtured. This is why some people write in cabins, paint in studios, or meditate in specific rooms. They are deliberately cultivating context-dependent thinking as a tool for creativity and self-discovery. Now let's make it actionable with a simple 3-step toolkit. Step 1. Notice your defaults. Pay attention to where you usually work, rest, and create. What mental states do those places cue? Step 2. Design small disruptions. Change your route, rearrange your desk, or take your notebook to a different spot. Treat novelty like a vitamin you take in small, regular doses. Step 3. Anchor your spaces. Decide what each environment is for and keep those associations clean. Protect your bed for rest, your desk for focus, your sanctuary for reflection. With time, these cues become powerful triggers that make your mind more efficient, creative, and emotionally balanced. Think about how this might play out in your life. If you're stuck on a problem at work, instead of grinding harder at your desk, take the problem for a walk. If you're struggling to unwind at night, don't scroll your phone in the same spot where you answer emails. Step into a space that signals rest. If you're searching for inspiration, don't wait for lightning to strike. Go to a place that reliably awakens curiosity, whether it's a museum, a park, or simply a different corner of your home. By shifting place, you shift mind. Ultimately, the environments you choose are like invisible partners in your thinking process. They can narrow you or expand you, drain you or energize you, trap you in old loops or open you to new possibilities. You don't have to accept them as static. You can curate them like an artist, designing the stage on which your thoughts perform. And when you do, you discover that creativity and renewal are not distant, mystical events. They're the natural byproducts of aligning your inner world with the outer one. So the next time you catch yourself waiting for a breakthrough, don't only look inward, look around you. Change your seat, step outside, explore a new path. Notice how quickly your mind begins to shift. The places you inhabit are not neutral. They are the silent co-authors of your thoughts. And when you learn to work with them rather than against them, you unlock a hidden dimension of self-understanding and creativity. If this perspective opened something for you today, share it with someone who also longs for fresh ideas and invite them into this conversation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us here at Mind Unlocked, your toolkit for better thinking, for deeper self-understanding, and for building a life that feels not only coherent, but truly alive.